Today, I'd like to talk to you about managing stress and stressors through your limbic system. It is our limbic system that's the root of a lot of the problems that we might experience with regard to anxiety and emotional stressors. Our environments are kind of crazy as it is, and we experience a lot of different things through our senses, which is, light, sound, smells, temperatures. And on top of all of that, we have our emotions to deal with as well. And our emotions are a byproduct of our environment and also the way that our body is chemically, or our brain is chemically responding to that environment. And that can create a whole plethora of issues if it's kind of gone untreated and if it starts to get overtaxed and isn't put back into check. And sometimes traumatic experiences can bring on that limbic response. And it's kind of like a heat stroke in that once you've had that extreme limbic response, you might be a little bit susceptible to it in the future. And it's literally a physical response to environmental factors. And other cases, I say trauma is associated very heavily with that limbic response. I mean, we know that as PTSD. But there are other ways that limbic system can affect our lives that may not be categorized as PTSD, but as other limbic issues like sensitivity to light and sound and things of that nature. These things can be brought on through your lifestyle, the way that you eat, the exercise you get, the relationships that you have in your life. And it isn't just about maintaining your own energy, because the other people in our lives have an effect on that as well. And so our relationships and the type of relationships, the quality of relationships that we have really plays a factor in our limbic health. And the reason for that, this is very scientific, as a matter of fact. We know that love is headed by three major neuromodulators: dopamine, oxytocin, and vasopressin. And these are positive chemicals for our body. These are the chemicals that make us feel good. And being in a good relationship, being in a positive relationship, can help you to create those type of chemicals in your brain. And being in a connection that isn't loving, let's say, doesn't just deprive you of those positive chemicals, but it also injects negative fight or flight type chemicals into your brain, which ultimately rewire your brain for negativity. And then it starts to kind of snowball in that limbic response. That's where that limbic loop starts, right? We can't be without relationships because as human beings, I believe that we require a certain amount of connection and understanding and affection. Touch is so big with the human, and that's why we love our pets, because our pets love us unconditionally. And it is, yes, about receiving love in a lot of ways, but a lot of us don't have control over what love we receive. The only thing we have control over really is the love that we give. And giving love can also create those same chemical processes in your brain as receiving love. And that gives you a little bit of power. It gives you a little bit of edge because you're not a victim to whatever the world presents, but instead you have the ability to create it for yourself in whatever ways you can. And creating love and good things in your life will help to balance negative circumstances that you may have to experience and may not have control over. And I realize that there's a lot of people out there that look at their relationships, whatever they may be, a lover, a friend, a family member, whatever they may be, they look to their relationships to heal them, to balance them, to fill something that's missing inside. And I think a lot of people feel like there's something missing inside. It's that desire to connect with someone. It's that desire to feel whole. And I think that we look for someone else to make us feel whole. And a lot of times we might feel disappointed because the people that we're looking to may be looking to us for the same reasons. And so when people come into a connection looking for what they can get from the connection, they're already at a disadvantage, because you should be moving into something wondering what you can give. Because when you genuinely love something or someone, like our pets, we have no problem giving endlessly to that without expectation. And I think that when you found someone that matters in your life, may it be your friend or family or lover, we should give them the same courtesy that we would give our dog or our cat, you know? But not to get too far off the subject, the big point here is that we need other people in our lives in order to have a healthy limbic response. And having unhealthy things in your life will definitely make you have a negative limbic response, but also lacking the good things in life will affect that as well. There's this, this feeling that descends on us. It's natural. We want to find that connection. We want to find someone else to understand, to be compassionate, to be affectionate with us. And like I said, many of us have found that in our pets, but have a difficult time finding that in humans. And I really think a lot of that has to do with our own expectations. So, making the relationships that you have healthy, positive, happy connections is one part of it. And for those connections that you cannot heal, because there are connections that you just can't. There are people that are just not there, and you cannot work with that. And when you come into those situations, you need to avoid them when you can. And in cases where you can't, just be understanding. I'd say give without expectation, but don't give until you have nothing left to give. If you understand, there is a balance there. But I would say, with regard to the limbic system, it is a physical thing, but our feelings and our emotions are not. And so it's really difficult sometimes to get to put your finger on what it is that's really getting at you. And sometimes with a limbic response, you might just get triggered from the wind blowing. It may not be something that is significant that causes you to have some sort of anxiety or limbic response, like, sweating and nervousness and shaking. It could be anything that triggers that for us. And a lot of people experience it. I would just say the majority of people experience it, and it's at different degrees, for each individual. And the interesting thing about that limbic system is it ultimately delegates the intensity of our emotions. And so something like that wouldn't bother someone else might really bother you. It could be a light, it could be a sound, it could be, a circumstance. So that limbic system is kind of controlling us, and we don't need to be controlled so much by it. We need to learn how to manage it, how to control it, and how to retrain it to be where we want it to be, to produce the chemicals we want it to produce, instead of fight or flight all the time. I don't need to be scared all the time, And I do think that the limbic situation for the general population at large has probably worsened over this last 3 years, and the pandemic has not helped. I feel like that has been a real driving factor in a lot of cognitive as well as limbic disorders that people are experiencing that they really just don't know how to deal with. Like, what do I do with this? And yes, your doctors can prescribe pharmaceuticals, and some people may need pharmaceuticals to help balance that chemical reaction in their brain. And there are others that can treat that with, lifestyle changes and in the diet, exercise, and in the connections and the quality of your relationships. I'm telling you, this is a big piece of finding that balance. The limbic response is a big subject with me because I feel like I've dealt with it a lot in several different situations, even in situations where inflammation was a factor. And for many people, inflammation could very well be a factor. Over the last 3 years, we've experienced things that could perhaps have had an effect on our body's inflammation response. And for some people, it may be that systemic issues have arisen, and I've seen a rise in that over the last few years. And for others, it could be just other factors. But inflammation could play a role in a limbic response. If that is fitting for you, I do think that I do need to mention it. And they're finding that there are certain plasmas they find in the brain that are linked to, anger and problems controlling emotion. And that's all kind of linked in with that inflammation, it turns out. And so getting the inflammation in your body down to a minimum is really a big goal for especially people that are over the age of 40. I'm willing to bet that the majority of people over 40 are experiencing some level of inflammation in their bodies. And we can experience that inflammation in our brain and never really realize it. And that, again, is going to have an impact on the way your brain responds in that limbic response. And again, if you want to, just a quick little pointer on that is, ginger and turmeric and omega-3s and I believe iodine. There's a lot of different natural remedies for inflammation. I believe benfotiamine might make it on that list too. And as I recommend, if you do have inflammation, to look into it and see what kind of natural remedies are out there. And then, of course, there are some pharmaceutical remedies for it as well. When it comes to anti-inflammatories, especially the pharmaceuticals, they can have a long-term effect on your organs, like your kidneys and your liver. So be careful taking anti-inflammatory medications. And then again, drink lots of water. Lots and lots of water. Keep yourself hydrated. That, I was talking to a fish guy one time. He was, he took care of fish tanks and he maintained that sort of thing. And he told me the solution is dilution. And then I heard later, that with the military, they say the solution to any problem is drinking more water. And so there's some truth to that. It's like washing your system out, rinsing out those chemicals that build up in your system, flushing it out, rinse it out with water, lots of water. And I like to use charged water, structured water. And if you need to see what that's all about, check it out. I've got some information on my YouTube. I've got some videos there on charging water. And then controlling environmental factors, making the setting in your home comfortable, controlling the lights, the sounds, the smells, the temperatures, bringing things into a comfortable place for yourself when you can is important. Controlling those environmental factors where you can is important. If you haven't checked out my rules for resonance, check those videos out. They're in my playlist, and I'll leave a link for them in the description below. There's a lot of good tips there on how to keep yourself in a good frequency. But a lot of times we can't control those environmental factors. We can't control the circumstances that we may find ourselves in. And when we find ourselves in those circumstances, we need to have a few tools in our toolbox to be able to manage them. And I've done a couple of videos on that here on the channel. Probably one of my biggest things is breathing. I think every guru on the planet is going to tell you breathing is probably the biggest tool in your toolbox, is, learning how to breathe, reoxygenating your blood, keeping that oxygen flowing. It's going to help you to relax and come into a better frequency. Another tool in my toolbox is I like to go into the bathroom or kitchen or whatever and just let the water run over my hands and just kind of intend for that energy to flow off of me. And I just kind of try to bring myself into a better frequency through, having water on my hands. If, you can take a shower or a bath, that's always better. But in a social situation and you need to step away, put some water on your hands and just relax. That may help. Another trick I use when I can't step away is I like to cast my focus off of whatever it is that might be making me feel overwhelmed. And I will just take a moment to change my focus, take a deep breath, and relax, and then come back to the situation, refocus my energy. Sometimes that can be very helpful. When you are in an intense situation with a person or an environment and the energies are coming at you, you have to learn how to manage that. And I've had a lot of experience with regard to dealing with heavily intense situations and circumstances and not being able to remove myself from the situation, but having to buckle down and deal with it. And the thing I do when I'm faced with something like that is I try not to allow that energy to come into my energetic field. And you can't really put up a wall against it and say, oh, I'm not going to take it, because when you push against it, it pushes back on you in a certain sense, if you know what I mean. The trick is to learn to let that energy flow and just don't try to control it. Don't let it affect you. Instead, just let it flow through you. Let it flow past you. Imagine yourself as being like a really fast-moving train, and you're just pushing along the tracks, and all that negative energy is just pushing past. It's just blowing past you as you're moving towards your focus. And keeping your focus where your focus needs to be in intense situations is going to help you with that limbic response. It's letting go of the things that you can't focus on, the things that are going to try and distract you from your focus. It's letting those things flow. Let them flow right past you. Just let them shoot on by, and keep that focus where it needs to be until that situation calms down. Then, when the situation is calmed down to a manageable level, you'll be able to approach it in a better energy than if you have allowed it, than if you had allowed that fast-moving frequency to get into your energy and create disorientation, in a sense, to impose on your frequency. A lot of it is about allowance and about acceptance and the willingness to push through whatever your circumstances may be. And our environments are just a real big part of that. And like I mentioned before, exercise is so very important to the limbic system, healthy exercise. I don't know. I just don't really believe in going to the health club and working out in front of people, for one thing. But the other thing is, I just don't like sharing equipment and all that. It's just yucky. But a lot of us don't like that health club scene. And it's like, well, if I can't go to the health club, what am I going to do? There's lots of things that you can do to keep yourself in shape. I have like little things like set up around my studio here. I've got, my little lift bar. I can do some chin-ups if I feel like it. Just walk by and do a couple as you walk through the door. I've got a balance board. I can do a few little, I'll just pull it out for a few minutes and just play around on it. And then I might, jump down, do some push-ups and some squats or, whatever the case may be. But yeah, I like to try and do that throughout the day. And it's my little 1 minute workout, my little muscle confusion, muscle confusion is actually a real thing. But and this might fall into that category for sure. But yeah, whatever it is, I just try to keep some physical activity going, because I can end up sitting at a computer for a really long time. And another thing to do is, get outside and get some of that prana, get some of that sunlight. We literally absorb vitamins from the sun. And there's that ethereal element that we don't quite understand about the sun, but it's very healing, and it's that prana. So get out there and get some sun on your skin, allow it into your eyes. And that should be very, very healing. And, for me to get exercise, like I said, I don't really enjoy just, working on a machine or just lifting weights. That can be so boring. But getting out and walking or working in the yard or, doing some sort of physical activity. It's a great way of getting what you need with regard to your limbic system. And walking is such a big one. And I think about Caesar Milan, the dog trainer. And he was big on walking because he was like, she's leaving it behind. When he takes the dogs walking is such a cure for them because they're leaving their problems behind in a sense. And it's that act of moving forward. So the more you walk, the more you're leaving, figuratively speaking, the more you're leaving your problems behind you and moving forward towards something else. So walking is a great physical as well as psychological tool for exercise in your limbic system. And also, our diet plays a huge role in the way that our brain processes proteins and the way that our limbic system responds. It could be our diet that causes limbic system distress. So finding a diet that might be right for you and whatever your situation may be might be something to look into. And another thing is supplementing your diet in places where you may not, where you might be missing, right? And I do have a little arsenal of amino acids and vitamin supplements that I like to use to kind of battle limbic system distress and anti-aging. And my top 5 there are benfotiamine. Actually, I should say alpha lipoic being the top one that I use for limbic system distress, because alpha lipoic is going to create a barrier around those neural transmissions. So those things that are so extreme might be a little less extreme, and it also kind of creates a protective layer around your cells. So it's a really beneficial for specifically limbic disorders. And then benfotiamine, also I mentioned earlier in the conversation, has anti-inflammatory benefits, but it also has anti-aging benefits, cellular turnover, all sorts of stuff. So I recommend that you look at benfotiamine as well. And L-carnosine is another favorite. And that one is a lot of heart benefits. And again, it's about cellular turnover and aging and your telomeres. And all of those things are also going to benefit your limbic system as well. And your 9 essential amino acids are vital to just making sure your body has what it needs. And if you're not getting that through your diet, you might want to consider a supplement for those. Your vitamins A and B with benfotiamine. Vitamin C is so important. Vitamin C will help boost your immune system. It also has anti-aging properties, cellular turnover, energy, a whole lot of other wonderful benefits. In fact, I keep vitamin C around here, and when my kids come around or whatever, they always grab one. And I'm always encouraging everybody, just have some vitamin C. It's really good for you. Don't, of course, overdose on it, but take the recommended dosage on your vitamin C. And you can also do research on that to find out the appropriate dosage for you. Vitamin D is another one that people are just not getting enough vitamin D, and a lot of people's blood work come back that they are very much low on vitamin D. And so a supplement for vitamin D may be in order. And of course, going out in the sun is going to get you that vitamin D naturally. But for those who don't get enough sun, you can take that supplement, and it won't replace the prana and that special stuff that you might be absorbing that you don't realize, but it will improve your vitamin D levels, and that can help you and benefit you in so many amazing ways. Energy, the quality of sleep that you get, again, anti-aging benefits, and your nerves, your limbic system. And vitamin E is another big one that you would probably want to research with regard to these things. And then I just want to touch briefly on the last thing on the list, I would say, would be your omega-3s. Your omega-3 and your omega-6 fatty acids should be in balance. And for most people, they're not. Most people are very heavy in omega-6s and not enough of the omega-3s. And so you can get your omega-3s naturally through fish or fish oils and nuts and seeds like flax seeds and walnuts, or plant oils like flaxseed oil, soybean oil, and canola oil. So there are some ways that you could incorporate that into your diet. And again, if you need a supplement for that, you might check out the supplements. I will say that fish oil isn't always agreeable with most people, so it can cause digestive problems and discomfort. And a lot of people prefer cod liver oil to the fish oil to get their omega-3s. But all in all, these are the things that you can do. These are the things that you can try and put in check in order to help create a better environment, better relationships, better overall lifestyle for yourself to heal any kind of limbic distress, and also to prevent any future problems. We all face different challenges in our life, and they always say it's how you respond to those challenges that delegate how you move forward. And if you have a problem like this, it literally, it's an additional challenge. Having a limbic response is just an additional challenge on top of whatever you're already dealing with. And that presents a whole new set of challenges for the person that's experiencing that. And so learning how to control that is going to benefit you in so many ways. Many of you are familiar with my sound frequency work, and I do believe that certain frequencies can help to change the channel, so to speak, and to bring us into a better frequency. And some of the meditations that I do on this channel can help you to create new neural pathways and to let go of some of the things that might have attached themselves to you, as I like to talk about the attachment energies that we carry. So I hope you found some benefit from this conversation, and I hope that it will help you in your future, and I wish you all the very best. Please remember to subscribe. Your support helps keep the channel going. I appreciate you all. Take care.